In this video, rather than doing the traditional unboxing that I'm sure dozens if not hundreds of people are already doing or have already done, I thought I would just do a video showing my impressions of the DualShock 4 controller, the new controller that you can get for the PlayStation 4. This controller became available to buy over the last week or two from stores like Best Buy, EB Games, or GameStop, and basically most other electronics stores. I'm not sure why there was an early release, but it's always good to get that early look at the controller, which is arguably the most important part of a console. Most people are generally interested in what the box itself looks like, what the console itself looks like, but the controller is really the key part of the console because it's what you're going to be holding for hours and hours and hours while the box itself stays tucked under your TV or in your entertainment system. So let's get into my impressions of this controller. The first thing you'll likely notice when you hold this controller, aside from aesthetically and the new buttons and stuff, is the feel of it. On the back here, you've got like a carbon fiber type material. It's got some texture to it. You can't really make it out on the screen, but it does have a bit of grip to it. You've got the new trackpad at the front. I'm not sure this trackpad will be touch sensitive because it does click in, as you can see there. It clicks in, it wraps up the top next to the new light bar, which will light up depending on what player you are. Player 1, I believe, is blue, and player 2 is red, and so on for controllers 3 and 4. You still have the traditional PlayStation button in the middle. Looks a little bit different. The joysticks are now concave instead of the old just kind of flat grips that you had before. My favorite improvement to this controller would be the R2 and the L2 buttons. I'll flip it around here so you can see it a bit better on an angle. They are curved now, similar to the Xbox 360 controllers. The PS3 or the DualShock 3 controllers used to curve downwards, and that could be a bit of a hassle. People weren't too thrilled on those. The other thing that you might notice when you hold this controller is that I believe the grips or the joysticks are slightly further apart than they were on the DualShock 3, and these handles here are slightly longer, which I've got decent sized hands, definitely an improvement. My hands do still hang off a little bit here, my pinkies, but the joysticks are definitely better because before they were much closer, and I will do a comparison in a second here of the DualShock 3. And the triggers are of course much better. Your fingers aren't slipping off because they do have that lip there. So here we have the DualShock 3 on the left and the DualShock 4 on the right, of course. You'll notice that the buttons are basically identical, aside from a slight texture difference on top. On the DualShock 3 they are a bit more glossy, whereas the DualShock 4, that gloss is absent and it's more of a matte finish. The joysticks, certainly different. Just looking here now, the difference is actually much bigger than I had even previously noticed. So the controller does look bigger. I believe it's a bit wider. I didn't do any specific measurements, but I'm sure you can find those online or in other more specific videos. The controller on the left here, the DualShock 3, you will notice those triggers I was talking about. They kind of angle downwards, and you've got the lipped triggers on the DualShock 4. Now, if you put them next to each other like this, the triggers further apart, or the DualShock 4 does look wider, but then when you bring them together like this, they do meet at the same point. It's just kind of hard to tell whether it's just your eyes playing tricks on you, or if it really is wider. I suppose I could do measurements, but I don't have the time for that. One thing that you may want to note is that the DualShock 3 was a mini USB input there for your USB cable to charge the controller, and they have made the switch for the DualShock 4 to the micro B USB input, which you can see right there. It's a bit smaller, not the same plug-in. As per usual, the controllers, when you buy them independently, do not come with a USB cable. You presumably will get one when you buy your PS4. I would assume it's also just a 3-foot cable like you got with the PS3. So I would suggest maybe going to eBay. You can find really cheap cables on there. I have a 10-foot cable for when I want to plug and play or charge and play, and it only cost me maybe less than $1. You can find them really cheap from sellers in Asia, and I really haven't had any problems. So if you're the type of person that wants to plug and play or charge and play at the same time, that's something you may want to consider because, like I said, this input is different than the DualShock 3. As I was saying with the DualShock 3, you can see here my thumbs are much closer together and my hands hang off quite a bit here. When I switched from Xbox 360 to PlayStation 3, my hands, honestly, with my pinkies would like start falling asleep just because of the awkward position that I would have to hold them in. I of course have got used to that, this shape of the controller over the last few years. I've switched to PlayStation 3 I think just over 3 years ago. But anyways, another difference that I failed to mention was the D-pad buttons. You can see that on the DualShock 4 they angle inwards the bottom one angle is up, the top one angle is down, the left and right the angle inwards. So that's another difference there. You can also see that there is a speaker on the DualShock 4 here, something that I think was first introduced on the Wii controller. I refuse to call it the Wiimote, despite the fact that I just did. But other than that, I think those are the key differences. So I just thought maybe I'll give what I think of this controller. I'll start out by saying that this is absolutely an improvement of the DualShock 3. They fixed the triggers, which is probably one of the most complained things about. Second most complained thing about the grips. They improved those. They improved the length here. Those three things I'm very happy about. It still kind of is, the handles are somewhat awkward still for someone with bigger hands like me. My pinkies still kind of hang off. There's always been comparisons to the Xbox 360 controller, of course, and a lot of people say that that's the best controller of all time. I've heard that quite a bit. And this has that support for my pinky there. It's pretty, I'm not a fan of these joysticks, the way they're kind of one's here, one's here. I've never been really a fan of that. It'd be better if it was the same place. I am used to that with PS3. But the triggers are similar too. But the size of it and the weight of it, I've never been a huge fan of. It's just that support that it gives you here at the bottom. Overall, I do think that this controller is much improved. It's definitely going to be much more enjoyable playing games on something like this. I'm anxious to see how well they incorporate this touchpad, whether it is touch sensitive or whether you have to click in on it. Like I said, it clicks up there. The light bar, I think, is a bit of a novelty. I don't think many developers are going to be using that. I do like, though, that it will be on, and I've heard that when you're playing games like Call of Duty or Battlefield, when you shoot, that's actually going to flash. I think that'll create a bit of ambiance when you're playing in the dark with lights off, stuff like that. Again, it's kind of a novelty, but I do think it'll be kind of cool. I've always been a fan of like neon lights and just random stuff like that. It's a bit of an odd thing, I know, but it's something to add to it. It is going to be compatible with the Move camera, which I doubt a lot of people are going to be. Not the Move camera that was on PS3 that was used for Move. The PlayStation Eye, I don't know if that's what they're still calling it, but I'm likely to pick that up. I think it's $50. Likely to pick it up because you can do cool things like it recognizes this, and so when you're typing a message, rather than flicking through all the different letters, you can actually go like this and kind of guide it to what letter you want to get to when you're typing a message. How easy that's going to be, I don't know. But overall, this controller, more comfortable. The texture is one of my favorite things about this, next to the triggers. The trigger is definitely my favorite thing. Second favorite thing has to be the texture here. Maybe go pick it up if you can't make out the texture. It is like carbon fiber. So if you can go pick this up, it's very unlikely that they'll be sold out. There were quite a few copies at Best Buy when I was there last night and picked this up. Though this video is a little bit late, I just wanted to give my impressions of what I thought of the DualShock 4. I do look forward to using it on my PlayStation 4 when I get it on November 15th, which is a week from yesterday. So you're looking at another 12 to 13 days by the time you see this video when it is uploaded. Thank you very much for watching my DualShock 4 impressions video. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, leave me comments down below letting me know what trophy videos or what other kinds of videos you'd like to see here on my channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all look forward to getting your PlayStation 4 on November 15th.